Welcome to the Onstage Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Robert. Hello, I always like that explosion. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but hopefully everything will be sort of consistent, just working a few things here and there. And eventually, now that I have a permanent background, which I'll be using, I got a brand new logo, as you see in the top left, and then we just go from there. So we have a special guest. Wow. Ted Yoder, believe it, the hammered dulcimer player. In fact, you listen to his work and you listen to some of his covers and the ones he did for Tears for Fears when he had Curt Smith over at his place to listen. He got like 2.2 million views on YouTube and another 1.1 from that version. Excellent. And there's, Joshua Messick fans out there will probably rather just listen to Ted Yoder because I like his dulcimer playing. So we're going to introduce Ted Yoder. Hello, Ted.
Hello, Chris.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us on our show.
My pleasure.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a live banner just so people can ask questions. So how are you, my friend? How was your week? Here it's particularly almost summer there.
Well, it was very summer last week. We had like 3 or 4 days up in the high 80s, and now it's back to spring. So that's what happens in Indiana. We usually have one really hot week before it's supposed to be hot, and then it goes back to, sweaters and pants for a time.
Well, let's see what the weather's like in Colorado. Hello, Colorado. Audra Erickson.
I know Audra. She's a dear friend.
Excellent. Hello, Audra. Pleased to make your acquaintance. So anybody out there that wants to send Ted a question for our Q&A at the end of the program, just as it says, just type a Q and then the question, and we will get to those pretty soon. But welcome, Ted. So really pleased that you're on the show, and please give us a background, like a backstory of who you are and why you found yourself playing this different instrument that not very many people play, except Joshua Messick. But anyway, go ahead.
Have you had Joshua on the show?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, just you.
So
you
Josh and I have an interesting story. Yeah, but that's maybe another time.
Sure.
So yeah, my journey started actually back in the 80s, way before I even got a hammered dulcimer. The first person I ever heard play the hammered dulcimer was Rich Mullins. Yeah. And it was just one of those captivating instruments. I just couldn't believe what I was watching and hearing. And truthfully, when I was listening on a cassette, I thought it was just a synthesizer because it was in the middle of the 80s. What wasn't a synthesizer, So, and then when I went to his concerts all the time, and I saw him come out and play it for the first time, and I just thought, what in the world is that thing? And it just captivated me. And so that's where the journey started. But I didn't end up picking up one until 12 years later, when my wife and I got married, and we were living down in Russellville, Arkansas. And there was this little shop up in Mountain View, Arkansas, that evidently had a hammered, or she heard that had a hammered dulcimer for sale. And so she took wedding money that she could have used for any number of things, because we were newly married. We had a card table. We didn't even have a mattress. We were just sleeping on the floor on blankets.
Wow.
It was, we didn't need much other than each other, So anyway, she took wedding money and bought me a hammered dulcimer in 1997, and that's where it all began.
Was it pretty difficult to play?
Absolutely. I will not sugarcoat it at all. You know, coming from, I mean, I was a piano player. I played keyboards, but I never had to tune my piano. I never had to tune a keyboard. So tuning itself was pretty daunting. And when you first get a hammered dulcimer and you look at the strings, it's like at the time when we bought it, the thing that was big were those posters that you would look at, those 3D posters, and you had to go cross-eyed in order to see the picture. I would honestly look at the dulcimer and try to hit a particular string, and because of the 3D nature of the strings, it took a long time to just acclimate the vision to what was happening on the soundboard and stuff. So yeah, it's once you get into it, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do on it that sounds beautiful instantly. But as you dig into it, if you're wanting to work on the craft, I don't know how to say it exactly, but just beyond messing around on it, if you're actually wanting to really learn the layout and how to make it sing, that kind of thing, it's not an easy instrument to pick up.
Talking about pickup, was it a great instrument to actually pick up? Is it heavy or light, or
certain models, especially back in the 80s and 90s, were extremely heavy. The builders were actually building them like pianos, because and I say like pianos with a lot of bracing, and so the builder that I work closely with, he's a dear friend as well. He told me they have over 2,000 pounds of pressure on the soundboard pulling in, so the hammered dulcimer literally wants to fold like a book on itself.
Oh, wow.
And so the whole point of the bracing inside is to keep it from doing that. But not to get too nerdy, but if you brace it up too much, basically putting in too thick of bracing, too thick of pin blocks, just that kind of thing, that makes so much more mass that the vibrations have to push through to actually make sound. So the more mass of wood in there, the less dynamics you'll get from your instrument. And so my builder in particular, who is Masterworks in Oklahoma, he basically went the Stradivarius route, where they would take out all the bracing or take out the bracing on a regulated measure until the instrument collapsed, and then they would build it back up just to that almost breaking point. And that's what makes the Stradivarius what it is. But anyway, so that's what he does with his hammered dulcimers as well.
You ever heard of the Hungarian Cimbalom?
Oh, yes.
It resembles a dulcimer, actually.
That's actually more like a piano. I mean, those literally have these big fat piano crafted legs on them and everything. And they, if you ever see, if you see one in person and see them setting it up, they actually move it in with two-wheel dollies. I don't need to do that. This is only like 20 pounds.
They got you workout just by playing.
Yeah. So I love the Cimbalom, and I would love to. Those guys are extremely talented, and but I wouldn't want to move one. If I had one, it would just sit in my living room.
So when you're talking about Rich Mullins, who played a wonderful dulcimer as well, what if it was another Christian artist playing a harp? Would you have asked your wife, "Can we spend the wedding money on a harp?"
Not a chance. No, there was. That's a good question though. No, that's what I mean. It was captivating in its sound, in its look, and then once I got my hands on it, I mean, for the first 10 years that I had one, I probably played all of 2 or 3 songs, all the way through. I would noodle around and pick out an intro to a song or something like that. But it was really hard to get to the point to where I was actually playing a song all the way through, and crafting a song. And so, where was I going with that? But when I decided to try and do music for a living, the only instrument that I was in love with at that point was the hammered dulcimer. I play piano, guitar, but the dulcimer just it just feels like it was the instrument I was meant to play.
Yeah, like when I heard that version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World by the famous Ted Yoder. And you played in front of Curt Smith. I don't know if Roland Ozbal was there or not, but still he
was
sang.
not. Yeah.
That was amazing. And how long did it take you to learn that one?
Oh gosh, a friend of mine recommended that song probably 2 years before I actually crafted it. And so I was working on that one, just in and off, on and off, kind of thing. And it's one of those interesting things that some songs just take some time, especially if they're cover songs, because you're trying to take a song that was not written on hammered dulcimer and then apply it to a totally different instrument. And so sometimes it just takes a long time for a cover song to find its form. And that was one of them. And so when I actually played that one live, I played it like maybe a month earlier at a live concert for the first time. And I had maybe half the song, like, to where I could play it through. The rest of it was just a crapshoot. So I just told the crowd, well, I'm going to try and play this because someone asked for it. And I don't know how they knew that I was working on it. So when I played it live on Facebook, I started working on it that morning, and basically worked on it for a couple hours, and some pieces finally fell into place. And it's totally sloppy. I mean, I listened back to it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so bad, technique wise and everything. But it is what it is. I do that a lot when I just like to jump in. And so if there's mistakes in it, it's live, and that's what I was doing on Facebook at the time, was just playing something live. And I didn't want to perfect it. I just wanted to play it and get people's instant reaction. And I guess it turned out okay.
It turned out okay. It was awesome. It was awesome that it got the interest of the Tears for Fears people. Plus,
Yeah.
the version where you just played on your own got 2.2 million views.
Yep.
And the first one with Curt Smith, you got 1.1 million views. But still, you got the views, and it's amazing. So don't look down on yourself. I think you're really good. I mean, you win. But can you tell me about see here? I can't really, like, I wanted to learn to play the violin, and to play it here would be impossible because I'm in an apartment and every wall, like, different neighbors. But when you're in a house, you can take a violin and sound like you're, really bad at practice. And the dulcimer, I couldn't play it here because the acoustics are just really, really good here.
Sure.
So I envy you. I wish I could just, buy a house right now just for the dulcimer, But that's excellent. Yeah. So I love how you mentioned that you bought that dulcimer because it was for sale. But why would you say, like, I was reading somewhere you said that it was very difficult to purchase one?
Well, it's just that, you couldn't just walk into your local, guitar center and find one.
Okay.
And, you couldn't, even the internet wasn't what it is now, obviously. And so most of the builders weren't even on the internet at the time. And living in northern Indiana, I never knew that evidently Michigan is kind of like this mecca of hammered dulcimer players and tradition. And I never knew that. The only person I ever saw play the hammered dulcimer was Rich Mullins. I never saw one street performer, never ran into a festival. I just never saw one. So that was just it. I didn't know where to begin looking. And about the time the internet came on, who did I find? I think I found a guy by the name of Mark Wade, who's a hammered dulcimer player and a friend of mine. And then he started introducing me to other people that I had never heard of. Dan Landrum was one who actually played with Yanni, toured with Yanni, which is actually really fantastic to go back and look in some of the old 90s YouTube videos to see both Yanni and Dan Landrum with extremely long curly hair. But that's kind of humorous just in its own right. yeah, so then, once you start getting connected with people and, introduced, then it's like looking for a different car. You finally want to buy a Toyota, and you never see Toyotas, and then finally you see them everywhere. It's kind of that
Yes.
same thing.
Well, to be honest, Ted, I never heard of the Dulcimer until I met you on Facebook, and I asked myself,
Uh,
"Oh, that's a Hungarian timbre drum." I said, "No, it isn't. It's a hammered dulcimer." A what? I didn't even know Rich Mullins played the dulcimer, and I was like, "Okay, I thought he was just playing some sort of guitar or something." Now you're telling me, great. And the guy passed away. I was going like, "Oh no!" But yeah,
yeah,
that's an interesting story. Now you're able to go through with your music, and I heard that you sing as well now.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I grew up singing, and just kind of got away from it.
Mm.
I always enjoyed uh, playing piano and writing. I was never a good lyricist. I was kind of like the Beatles. I would say everything within like a verse and a chorus, and that was about it. And so, I mean, they did okay for themselves, but I just wanted to write more. But I was never very good at lyrics, and I always did better just crafting, and I enjoyed just crafting my own instrumental pieces, even on piano. So yeah, so once I just started focusing on that aspect of my music, I didn't do as much singing, but I still enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I went through all your previous work on YouTube, and I noticed you did some classical tunes as well.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
impressive. Yeah.
I what's most impressive is all of my classical knowledge comes from Looney Tunes cartoons. So I didn't grow up with any major classical. My parents weren't playing Bach or Beethoven or Chopin uh, on records or anything. It was just watching Looney Tunes, and I'm suddenly like, oh, that's a Bach piece. Oh, Ode to Joy is a Beethoven. What? Yeah. So um, yeah, no, it takes a long time to learn classical music, classical pieces. For me, especially because I'm not that fast of a note reader, and also I just don't have, this Rolodex memory of classical pieces to kind of fall back on, and so those are definitely labors of love.
Yeah, were you the type of person when you were younger that when you went to like a show or a concert with family, whatever, that it wasn't just your music you listened to, you looked at how people played the violin, played the drums,
Oh,
played the guitar, and you said to yourself, I want to play the guitar. I said, no, wait a minute, I no, that actually that instrument is better. Oh, I want to be a trumpet player. Oh, and then eventually you grow up and you're like, I'm deciding to play a totally different instrument, like the dulcimer, which you only
right.
saw just recently. And it's like, how did that happen? Um, s- so you had give a lot of yeah, thank you for those that information. But do you play a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
do you play just the dulcimer or do you play another instrument?
I can noodle around on the piano, guitar,
Cool.
anything with keys. Really, I can play a little bit of accordion. Um,
Nice.
but it's I would say 10 years ago I kind of dropped every instrument and
Mm.
just played the dulcimer.
Oh yeah,
So I can I can fake my way through a few things.
that's not bad. But can you actually learn to play by ear as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. I do almost all my playing by ear, and just music theory.
So let's say I just well can't play one now, but if I just decide to choose one out of my Spotify or whatever and just play it, could you literally just listen to the song and then just play it? Is that how?
Uh, I would say for the most part, I used to do some streaming on Twitch, and people would, throw out some songs that I've never considered playing, like Careless Whisper, um,
Yes.
and so I would just start trying to pick it out from memory, and sometimes I would, depending on the complexity or key of the song, um, I don't know, what would you say, Audra? I could get like maybe 50% of them to where I could play a workable version of it, probably in, you know, 10 minutes of just goofing around. Um, some of them I would just get like through a verse and an intro, and that was about it. But, so it kind of depends on the complexity of it all.
That's great. When you do give concerts around your area or at your house and you have people come to listen to you, do you have a set list of songs you're going to play? Or do you know in your mind that I'm going to play this and we'll play that one? How does that work?
Most of the time, when I was touring, so I've been doing full-time music since 2010, and the first 10 years was just me solo. I'd just go out, and so when I was by myself, I could easily just make up a set list on the fly and just kind of let the music and the feel of the crowd take me to where I felt it wanted to go. Now that I play with a band, it requires a set list. But I still every now and then call an audible, and even now sometimes, depending on what crowd we're at, they'll ask for a certain song or something, and the band is pretty good to oblige them if we know it.
Audra said it was like 50%, and David said the hit rate was much higher than 50%, but they both agree on it.
Well, they're both very kind people, so they're probably giving me a little bit more credit.
Sandy Niles has to leave. We'll come back to hear the whole thing another time. Love
Awesome.
to Ted and all the listeners. And then she said, yeah, more than 50%. Well, thank you, Sandy. So that's excellent. Has anybody that has shown at any of your concerts, did they claim that they knew how to play it as well?
Oh yeah. In fact, there's some fans that I've met over the years, and I even let them up on stage to play the instrument, especially when I had a new, like, what's my word? Just a brand new model that I was playing that nobody else in the country had at the time. They'd be like, "Oh, I heard Russell made you this one model. Can I play it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So, yeah, there's a lot of people that can play it. So
it's funny. I thought I knew every instrument, and then I hear about the hammered dulcimer. Like, the what? I'm thinking,
yeah, I think the hurdy-gurdy is more popular than the hammered dulcimer.
Yeah. So, do you know anything, like, why do dulcimers have hearts?
You're probably talking about the. Is this just a joke, or you're actually asking a genuine question?
They say, well, somebody said that children as well as adults are also drawn to the visual allure of the instrument shaped with curves resembling the female, right? Tradition tells us that the heart-shaped cutouts mark the instrument as one used in a mountain courting ritual. Did you ever get that information like that?
No, I did not.
So
I do, and that's definitely more in line with the mountain dulcimer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those models have hearts in them, but that's interesting. Yeah.
So do you have a backup in case something happens to the one you have?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't travel with two of them. I did for a time, just in that case, in case I got in an accident and one was hurt or stolen or something like that. I haven't traveled with two for a while, but so I don't know what I would do if anything happened to it while I'm on the road. But yes, I do have a backup now.
Awesome. David, yes, heart-shaped cutouts are mountain dulcimers, not hammered dulcimers, so my mistake.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, very much. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's excellent. Anybody else in your family interested in playing the dulcimer or any instrument, or anybody musically inclined else in your family?
Oh, I definitely, yeah. Quite a few of my kids are actually fairly musical.
Nice.
I have two daughters who have been in, wow, words fail me. Just like plays and musicals, that kind of stuff. Nobody, I mean, when they were younger, they played the hammered dulcimer a little bit when we were all traveling to dulcimer festivals and stuff like that. But as they got older, they started finding their own interests. So nobody's really pursuing music hard right now. But yeah, it's very appreciated though.
Well, that's wonderful. So what does did the pandemic do for your playing? Did you just play the dulcimer by yourself and for family? How did you manage that with the social distancing and 6 feet away?
Yeah, well, that's a whole 2 years of madness.
Yeah,
We got, as a band, we tried to get into live streaming and, just to bring music to people as much as possible on different platforms.
good.
Um, once once it got bad enough to where we weren't even getting together as a band, yeah, I started just doing stuff solo. Um, yeah, just diving into that. It was good and fun. Um, it had its tiring moments, that's for sure, because you just miss that. I think music, like food, is meant to be shared. I mean, sharing music over video like this is almost like, telling somebody, hey, let's have a pizza party and we'll do it over Zoom. It's just not quite the same. And so I think music is just such an inclusive medium, and it's just felt on so many levels, especially when it's live, that you just miss that so bad. And I still do. We don't, we do as many shows as we can right now, but there's energy that was missed over the pandemic. That's for sure.
Can it kind of affect a lot of actually sopranos and musicians, and especially the ones I interviewed. They said that they had to get other jobs. One lady
Mm-hmm.
was soprano, had to be a grave digger. I always share this story. I won't give her name, but she had to get a side job as a grave digger.
Wow.
And one of the questions I asked her, does anybody recognize you while you're digging that grave? Because you're going to dig your own grave pretty soon if they say no. And she says, yeah, one person working there said, oh, I know who you are. And another one I interviewed yesterday said that not only they're a country singer, but they also sell real estate as well.
Yeah.
So, but you got to get yourself all into full-time music. And at some point you're going to be making money from that. And is that something that you do as well, that you actually get paid for what you love as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
Good.
Yeah, like I said, I started, in 2010, and we as a family, we just basically scaled back in every way we could financially to be able to make it happen. There were 2 years before. The reason I use 2010 as a benchmark is because I won the National Hammer Dulcimer Championship in 2010. But the real reason that I went full time in 2010 was because I got fired from my day job a week before I went to compete. So yeah, that was the whole thing.
That's
And
terrible.
so my my wife, being the ever loving support of me, said, okay, let's not worry about the job. Let's just act like we're on vacation. We'll go down and compete, and then we'll worry about a job when we get back. And so I ended up winning, which was a huge shock to me. And that kind of set us on the path of, just right away we started contacting dulcimer festivals to just get out there and start teaching and, getting my name out. So anyway, previous to that though, I had started, gigging, in 2008, 2009, and I was still working a full-time job, 55 hours a week, and doing a lot of traveling. So I actually, I had the job that I had, I did a lot of traveling between Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And so I had a little company truck, and I would put my dulcimer in the front seat and buckle it in and take it with me, so that when I was at the hotel, instead of sitting there watching a movie, I'd practice hammer dulcimer. So I literally carried it around with me on the road as a passenger for 2 years.
So when you found out about these dulcimer festivals, how many dulcimers did you see at the one festival? Because it was hard for you to get one. Now you're at a festival and you see like 50, 60 of them. Said, where did you guys get these? I've been looking for
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all over. And by the time I won the national championship, I knew of almost all of the builders, and probably even talked to most of them, because as I was looking to buy my own dulcimer, a bigger model or something like that, I got to start reaching out to a bunch of different people. So it wasn't a big surprise. Still the hammered dulcimer is the middle child, if you will, of the dulcimer community. The mountain dulcimer, definitely. There's more people that play that for sure.
Which one do you think is bigger, though? The mountain dulcimer or the hammered dulcimer?
I would say mountain dulcimer, because you have bigger names like, was it Joni Mitchell, Grateful Dead, people like that.
Wow.
Bruce Hornsby, different people like that. Big name artists played the mountain dulcimer. I don't know of any big name artist that plays the hammered dulcimer. So,
would you consider the harpsichord and the dulcimer the same sort of instrument? Could you play the harpsichord too?
I could play the harpsichord just because it's shaped like a piano.
Okay.
But I just, again, to get geeky on you, the only reason I would liken the dulcimer more to a piano than a harpsichord is the mechanism by which the piano and the harpsichord are different. So the piano is struck by hammers just like the hammered dulcimer. The harpsichord is actually a plucked instrument. And so there's virtually no dynamics to a harpsichord. You can't play quieter. It's got one volume. So the piano and the dulcimer, because of the nature of controlled intensities, you're able to build dynamics on the instrument. So
I guess the dulcimer is more like the xylophone then, eh?
Yeah. But everybody basically calls it the dulcimer is the grandparent to the piano.
Yeah. Is it difficult to travel with it? Do you get your wife to carry it when you?
Oh gosh, no. She's 100 pounds soaking wet. So,
Okay.
No, I'm my own pack mule.
Oh, good. So I'm very curious about learning. I'm curious about learning to play a hammered dulcimer or dulcimer. What I need to know about it besides it's got strings.
Let's see. Tuning is going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done, as far as it's going to be monotonous. And so unless you come from it like tuning guitars or auto harps or something like that. So that's one of the biggest things. It's not, though it's the grandparent to the piano, it's not notation wise laid out like the piano at all. So that's unique. So yeah, it takes a long time, and so you have to go into it with a lot of patience. And as a good friend of mine who also plays hammered dulcimer, he actually plays gypsy jazz on the hammered dulcimer.
Nice.
His name is Andy Young. We were doing this. Actually, it was me, him, and Joshua. We were doing this show called. Yeah, we were doing what's it called? Old Time Radio Hour. No, I can't think of the whole thing. Anyway, Wood Songs, Old Time. Anyway, they did this. Michael Jonathan brought 3 hammered dulcimer players together who obviously did very different. Joshua's very cinematic. Andy does his gypsy jazz, and I do this rock and roll kind of stuff. And so he just wanted to have this extravaganza, this hammered dulcimer extravaganza. And so he was asking Andy that same question. He goes, so let's say a group of, second graders are introduced to the hammered dulcimer. What is the first thing you would tell them, to make sure it's in tune? He said, no, I'd tell them to buy a penny whistle. It's got 5 notes and it fits in your pocket. So, you need to be a brave soul to attack an instrument like this, or you just need to be extremely stubborn and, I don't know, maybe a bit of an idiot like me.
No. Well, my friend Armando says, hi, Ted. Greetings from Canada. I have appreciated both your music and your humble personality. I'm glad to catch this interview.
Thank you. How you doing, Armando? Good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, he listens to you all the time, watches you. He's really good. He's like really.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You got some good You got some great fans here in Canada.
Well, I do have great fans. I need to get up into the Great White North and somehow get some gigs up there. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, why not? I have a friend who said that about 25 years ago, they saw a wonderful solo hammered dulcimer player at a pub in southern England, and after that, they've been intrigued by the instrument ever since. So yeah, I guess if you're watching someone play the hammered dulcimer, to tell you the truth, Ted, after I watched some of your videos, I to confess, I found Joshua Messick's YouTube channel and I listened to his stuff, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know there was more than one. I thought you were rare, believe it or not.
You know, it reminded me that story you told me about the person that heard it in a pub, and then yeah,
Mhm,
um, I have a fan and a friend now who
mhm,
he of course heard the viral video, and he lives out in New Jersey, and been a music teacher. He's played in bands his whole life, and he when he saw it, he said, "This is ridiculous." He flashed back to a time when he was like 8, 10 years old, and he was just somewhere with his parents, and they ran across this guy playing the hammered dulcimer in on the street somewhere, and he just stood by him while the family went off and did other things. And so anyway, he just heard this. He suddenly was, scrolling through Facebook and heard this sound, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, that's that sound!" He couldn't remember what the instrument was, and he ended up buying one,
wow.
and so now he plays as well. So it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting how things stick to us like that.
Well, Randall thinks eating vegetarian rice, a wine, and watching a good Ted Yoder interview is enjoying the whole evening. Yeah. I like the hat. What's it say on the front there? Oh, that's the Nike hat, right?
Oh,
That's
mine, yeah, it's just
yeah.
Nike. It's probably about the only uh, how should I say, not popular. I don't know. It's like the only branding thing I own.
So
And
yeah, what would you end up going to? Do you go to many concerts to play the dulcimer, or do you just prefer just to stay at home and play your own? Like, are you sort of like I don't know, a fiddler or a violinist or drummer would just go to concerts just because they include drummers and violins? Do you go
oh,
to?
I got you.
Yeah.
Um, no, I don't go to concerts just to hear the hammered dulcimer anymore. I actually don't
Ooh,
listen to any hammered dulcimer music. There was there was a time, I can't remember. It had to have been before I won the national championship. There was another fantastic hammered dulcimer and wonderful person. His name is Stephen Humphries,
hmm.
um, and my gosh, he is so good. And I he had one particular album that I just listened to constantly, and yeah, so he was very influential in my style, and even getting me to have the confidence to play the hammered dulcimer in front of people. Um, but but yeah, that's actually kind of the last. Actually, David Woodman. I think it's you didn't say his last name, but I'm assuming it's David Woodman. Um, he lives over in UK, and he actually plays the hammered dulcimer very well. I have listened to his album, but that's more because he's a friend than it is because he plays hammered dulcimer.
Do listening to others playing that instrument make you a better player?
I would say that there were probably certain stages. That's a good question. There were certain stages that it did.
Hmm.
So one particular thing I mentioned, Stephen Humphries, and I was at a festival with him, and this was before I went there just to be a student and take all of his classes.
Hmm.
And there was so I mentioned that I had his CD memorized, the whole album. I could just, I knew exactly every note that he played, but I couldn't play what he did. I didn't have the technique, and I didn't have the knowledge of the instrument at the time. So during a lunch hour, he actually sat down um, and played for everybody just a few songs during the lunch hour. And he just happened to be at a spot where I could just kind of look over his shoulder. And because I knew everything that he was gonna play, note for note. I watched him do it, and I realized I could see his hands moving, and I was like, oh, that's how he got that sound. Oh, that's how he got those particular notes to be grouped that way. That was the first time I came back from a Dulcimer festival not depressed.
Wow.
Most of the time I went, but see, I'm a very emotional person, so most of the time I went and I would come home and I wouldn't play my instrument for like 2 months because I was just like, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get to where I want to go. And that was the first time I actually saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do it because I know what he's doing. I just don't have the technique to make it happen. And that was a big part. So that was that time. Now I get more inspired by watching other musicians play other instruments. And, you know, if I can watch like Chris Thiele play mandolin, Yo-Yo Ma play, you know, cello, those are masters of their instrument that you know, Bruce Hornsby playing piano, you know, those are the things that just make me go, okay, I need to get better at this. I need to be more musical. I need to, you know, maybe I need to wave my arms around, maybe be a little more entertaining body wise, you know, maybe there's something that, you know, there's always something to take from watching other people engage with their instrument.
What do you do if you get frustrated when you can't get a certain tune or a certain song? What do you do to de-stress yourself?
Well, one thing is probably usually walking away from the instrument.
Good idea. Yeah. That's
Before,
what they say at
before,
work with mental breaks is walk away from the computer.
yes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'll usually just go find my family and just spend time with them. I'll go for walks outside. I love nature, and so that's always a reset for me. I'm an introvert as well, so I definitely don't go to pizza parties to get de-stressed. I usually just go and walk and listen to the birds, and or do both. Play with family, start a fire in the backyard, something like that. Or you can always sit down and watch like a marathon of Marvel movies. That works too. But one thing to break through some spots, and this happens, I can't tell you how many times, when I'm at an impasse or I'm working on a particularly hard piece of music, one thing I've learned to do is I'll run through it like 2 or 3 times before I, like literally right before I jump into bed and go to sleep. And by the time I wake up in the morning and get back to my instrument, I actually can play the song better than before I went to bed. That's honestly something that really does work.
Yeah.
I don't know the science behind it and everything, but
I've noticed that too because I'm a tenor, and if it's a song I can't do by the evening, I would wait until I'm singing it in the kitchen, and when I'm singing it perfect, then I'll run, get the equipment, and just sing it because I don't know when I'm going to have that voice again, you know?
Yes.
But while you're with family and stepping away from the dulcimer, David Woodman Music says that your albums are the only hammered dulcimer albums he listens to. So
wow.
He says I am a long way behind him. So I don't know what that means. But yep. So I'm just gathering all the other questions here for a Q&A later. So anybody sends a question, I will favorite it and put it in the question directory so I can just go boom, 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 boom. Sorry, I'm supposed to be doing it the Dulcimer way. Ding, ding, ding. So, yeah. So there's this guy, and he actually was in New York City. And he saw this. You're gonna find this funny. He saw this gentleman playing a dulcimer, and he goes, "What is this?" So it's called a hammered dulcimer. Wow, I've never seen one of those. Oh yeah, because it's very rare. You never see them. I'm the only one. So what's your thought on that one?
I probably know him. Yeah.
Yeah.
If if I were to venture a guess, he was probably busking in the subway or at Central Park,
He
and his name
was.
is Paul.
Yes,
Um,
yes, his name's Paul, exactly.
yeah.
He said that they went away of the dodo. The hammer Dulcimer. But yeah, I really like the sound it makes. And being half Hungarian, when my mother really liked the Hungarian cymbalum, and I like string instruments because the dulcimer, the piano's a stringed instrument, the guitar,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you know who Amy Turk is. She's a world-renowned harpist, and
I don't.
the harp is actually 7, 8 feet tall.
Hmm.
And first I'm thinking, what's worse, to travel with a dulcimer or to travel with a harp underneath your hand? Like, how do you like, got the
Yeah,
harp
right.
here? you know? But they're both beautiful sounds, like
Oh
amazing
yeah,
sounds.
yeah.
So, what makes you so passionate about playing? Maybe is there some point where you just, I don't want to play this anymore. Would that be a possibility or no? It's ingrained in you to keep it as a tether to your soul, maybe?
Well, I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know that I would ever stop playing it. I might stop trying to make a living from it,
Hmm.
but I would probably never stop playing it. Because honestly, the only thing that wears me out is figuring out how to make money doing music for a living. That's the main stress of everything. Is you got to get good at your instrument. You got to um, become a master at it, and um, finding finding that place where you can
Hmm.
do what you love and play what you, and do what you work so hard at, and then also find people that are willing to buy a ticket or a CD.
Oh yeah.
That's the rub. Um, so I don't know if that's a roundabout way to answer your question. There have been times uh, where I haven't played the instrument. I think, and I say that for a time. Like there was a time where one of my sisters was going through a divorce, and we lived just down the road from her, and so we were very close, and I was one that she leaned on pretty heavily during that time to help her walk through that. And
Wow.
um, there was probably 3 to 6 months where I literally just didn't have the heart to get behind my instrument. I was just too emotionally whacked. Um, and finally one day, because I couldn't sleep and I was awake at sunrise, I decided to just take my dulcimer out to the orchard and play with the birds that were singing and the sun that was coming up, and just try
Wow.
to see what I could pour out onto the instrument, and a lot of times that's just, you know, sometimes when because I'm an emotional person, I think it's kind of weird. Sometimes I avoid the hammered dulcimer because it always brings out very strong emotion for me. And so when I'm overwhelmed with emotion during a certain time, it's usually really hard to get me behind my instrument. Whether that's the death of a loved one, or helping someone walk through a divorce, or any number of hard things in life. So that's just always interesting. I don't know, again, why it's that way, but one of my biggest motivations is finding peace,
Hmm.
and and that's actually for myself. Whether I'm fighting depression, whether I'm fighting anger,
Mm.
um, confusion, I, uh, I just long for a restful soul, and so that's one reason why I get behind the dulcimer, and that's always something that really touches me when people respond um, to my playing in the same way. Um, that feeds my heart a lot, and my passion is uh, knowing when my meager gift uh, blesses somebody else and helps them find peace.
Yeah, I find that same way. I mean, when my father passed, uh, girl that I was dating at that time, she sang for us. But I just lost somebody recently, a girl that I would duet with and sing with. She
Mm,
passed, so I'm hoping to. I wish I could just, because of the COVID restrictions, I would love to
hmm
travel down to the States and sing for her family because they can't even have a service or anything because of that COVID and
Right.
stuff. So at some point in your future, there's going to be maybe a get together or a wake or whatever, and I like to be part
hmm
of that. She was you
Yeah.
just never know what tomorrow will bring. She was only like 39 years old, and
Yeah.
I go through all the videos that her and I used to sing together with, and just so yeah, just I want to make sure you bring peace. I mean, I may not have that peace right now, but I will sing to get you that peace because you always want to
hmm
think about the
hmm
other person, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Diane says that peace is listening to Ted's music. I agree. It has helped me to listen to it. I really like the soft kind of like small, short sounds of the strings and everything. I like it actually. When you said that you would go and play it for the birds and everything, I remember that time one of my friends at the church, he was going on the missions field. So what we did, and I've never seen, but one of the parks down here in the city, um, right by the lake, right at the shore, we all gathered. This guy had no idea, brought bagpipes with him, started playing the bagpipes. And I was just so just being before God and just being before the music of the bagpipes and just feeling that peace. And it's like I love the bagpipes, but they have never given me peace until that moment. So now I listen to bagpipes all the time, and I'm now going to listen to Dulcimer. And so yes, and I agree, Diane, that listening to Ted's music does bring me peace, and I love it. Like I don't like that rocky stuff sometimes, because
Oh,
in respect to all
sometimes
the
you.
yeah, in respect
Yeah.
to all the
Yeah.
rock and roll musicians we had on the podcast, I'm going to say that I like rock and roll, and I'm going to stick with it. It does bring me peace, but when you listen to Dulcimer at that time, it does bring you peace as well.
Hey, everything in its season.
Yeah,
It's all good.
yeah. So someone mentioned that they actually go and they buy their strings at the same shop. They buy their banjo. I didn't realize that because they have a banjo. They're playing the banjo, and they go there and they find strings to um, to replace their dulcimer with.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what the um, what store they get it at. They actually
Hmm.
might build dulcimers there. They might actually just sell dulcimers, but they might actually sell the dulcimer string kits as well. Most hammered dulcimers will have not really guitar strings, but piano strings.
Hmm.
They'll have wound strings, brass wound strings. Mine in particular mostly has steel strings and then phosphor bronze for some of the notes. So it actually has three different types of strings on it. So you can't. I've used guitar strings when I was traveling and broke a particular string and I wasn't carrying the right ones with me for whatever reason, and somebody had a pack of guitar strings, and so I just manufactured a string out of one of those somehow to use it. So you can use it. It's just not always convenient or doesn't always sound the best.
Well, I've been told not to say anything because Audra says that you're a rock and roller at heart. Sorry, Audra. I promise I won't say that again. um, yeah. So this other person said that when they were a kid, their parents were involved in a local folk music organization where they first saw the dulcimer. They actually built one. You can buy a kit, and you can actually build it from a kit.
Mhm.
Has that ever interested you to build one?
It did at one point, and I would probably say this would have had to have been early 2000s, um, because I don't even think you can buy those kits anymore to do it. There was one company that sold these pre-made kits. I wasn't afraid of building one. I just knew that for about the amount of time it would take me to build it, I knew I wouldn't. I had played some of those kits too, and in the end, they just didn't have the sound that I wanted. So I figured, the amount of time it would take me to build one, I could probably save up money and get one that I really wanted and have a master build it, rather than me just kind of hack my way into it.
Yeah. So what do the flaps do? Like,
Those are
it's a sort of-
dampers.
yeah.
Those are dampers, and so I have a pedal underneath the dulcimer, and when I step on it, it pulls them down. So the dulcimer itself has sustain all by itself, and so you pull the dampers down to get varying degrees of dampening on the instrument.
And does it take long to set it up?
No.
No.
They're on my particular model, they're always attached. The dampers are attached to the dulcimer, and so all I have to do is hook up the cable to it, and that's it.
Are the sticks, are they made of the same material as the dulcimer, like same type of wood?
Most people probably play with wood mallets, wood hammers. That's what this type of thing is.
Wood hammers?
I actually play with carbon fiber, so you can see it's very thin and very flexible. So depending on what, I have different shapes as well. This is more of a spoon shape, if you will. It has the same type of handle.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. As the wooden ones, but yeah.
I was expecting you to show us a spatula of that one.
Exactly. I think there is a YouTube video out there. It's got to be years old now, where a friend of mine went on and played. He played the same song. I can't remember what song it was, but he had spoons. He had basting tools, and he just went through a bunch of different things and played the same song with a bunch of different household instruments, if you will, utensils.
Yeah, I actually heard a violinist, instead of the bow, they used a big pen, and it made the same sound. Yeah, it was amazing what you find on YouTube. I'm just like,
well, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Can you tell us the pricing of a dulcimer? Because someone said that you can find one under 300, but you might get one for more than 700 or 2,000 if you're looking at. What do you think?
Yeah. So, a friend and builder of mine out in Iowa, he likes to say that he is the Walmart version of the hammered dulcimer, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's cheap or cheaply made. It's inexpensive. He tries to make it so that he can keep it inexpensive, and so he can, just because of the materials he uses and the way he builds it. You can get a package that has, a case and a dulcimer and tuning wrench and everything you need to get going for roughly, $600-700. Or you can, or then you can also get models like mine from Masterworks that, can go all the way up to $6,000-7,000.
Oh, wow.
So it just depends, and Masterworks has inexpensive ones too, starter kits, if you will. But I just use those for comparisons.
Am I assuming that the $7,000 ones are made of like graphite or some sort of alloy or diamond,
No.
maybe platinum?
No, they're just wood, but there's just a lot more time and effort that goes into them because of different different options that they have on them, that kind of thing.
Well, I was told that when a dulcimer is stringed, like new strings are put on, that there's an excessive, you got to keep it out of excessive temperature extremes and humidity moderate environment. You have to keep it in.
Well, that's generally true anyway. Not just when you have new strings. Typically, when you have new strings on it, it takes a while for the strings to break in, especially if it's a brand new dulcimer with all brand new strings. No, the temperature thing is basically like if your hands and lips are dry, then your dulcimer's dry. And if they're not, then you're good, and so is the dulcimer. So you can, my bandmate Sarah actually has a dulcimer, but she also has, this giant marimba. And
Wow.
so she's very particular on keeping her house at a certain humidity level and that kind of thing. I've just always, like normal in my life, just kind of go by the seat of my pants and hope nothing breaks.
Yeah. How do you talking about the Dulcimer or yourself?
Well, yes, both.
How do you clean those things? How do you clean them? Is it easy to do?
No, it's not. If I tried all kinds of different things, the best way is actually just to keep a cover on it when you're not playing it, because it is a flat surface and it will collect a lot of dust. But my wife actually made something. I don't have one right next to me, but she made something called the what is it? Fuzzy floss? Yeah, fuzzy floss.
Fuzzy floss.
And so it's like anyway, she makes it, and you can run it up and down underneath the strings and into all the tiny cracks and stuff. So so that's the way I keep mine clean. But yeah, the best thing you can do is actually have a cover for it and just keep it covered. Otherwise, it's just a flat surface that gathers dust.
Yeah, but if you have it covered in the backyard with that cover thing, don't people going to think, "Hey, I like your barbecue"?
Right? Oh yeah. No, they thought it was a barbecue before.
Oh, wow.
There was a husband and a wife in Australia that was watching my video, and she showed it to her husband. He goes, "What is that? A grill?" So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How many strings does the instrument have?
It depends on the size. Mine is a 5-octave instrument, and so I have about 120 strings on it.
Wow.
120, 123, 126, something like that. But yeah, so that's the main thing too with dulcimers. The main price difference is the size of the instrument, the range that it has.
Yeah, I was doing some research, and apparently the dulcimer was originated in the Middle East about 900 AD.
Yep, that would flow.
Yeah, and it's much related to, I didn't even think of this, the older psaltery.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, the research I did on this. It's like all string instruments.
I was playing at a festival. It wasn't a dulcimer festival, but it was here in Indiana, actually, just a town away. And there was somebody that came up. They were from Hungary, and she couldn't even speak English. And she, oh no, that's a different story. Anyway, I'll tell that one. And she couldn't even speak English, but she recognized the instrument because it was like, oh, this is like the cymbalum, and so she's talking to me as through an interpreter. So that was really cool. I have a little more of a story to tell with that one, but the story I was trying to get to is I was playing somewhere, and I can't remember where it was. I think it was Ohio, but this gentleman comes up to me afterwards and was talking to me, and he was obviously Middle Eastern descent, and he said, this is an instrument that in Turkey he used to go to a mosque that has the first ever drawing of the santur, which is the Indian version of the hammered dulcimer, which was probably the first iteration of the dulcimer period. But he actually went to temple to where it is documented that that's the first, drawing or whatever of the hammered dulcimer. That was
That's
cool.
an interesting story. Do you know where? I don't know. This is like a trivia question. Do you know what country the dulcimer was originated from?
Oh, as far as I know, it was the Middle East, and probably Turkey would be where it was.
Persia, which is now
Persia.
which is now Iran, actually.
Yep.
So that's interesting. I didn't even know that. And so that's very interesting. And apparently, between 900 and 1200, by the Moors, it was developed by returning crusaders. Brought it into Eastern Europe by the Roma people. So that's interesting. I like it.
And then the gypsies got a hold of it, and this was one of the main instruments that the gypsies would play It was a smaller version,
Mm-hmm.
but and they would strap it around their shoulders and kind of have it out in front of them, and they could just play it right here in front of them like you would a guitar or a fiddle. And so between the guitar, the fiddle, and the hammered dulcimer, and the gypsies with all their traveling about, that's how it actually got spread through Europe.
That's excellent. So what is your do you have a Mount Everest like is there a song that you can't yet play on the dulcimer but you intend to? Like for me, the one song I want to learn to sing my Mount Everest is Nessun Dorma, and one day I'll get it. So I'll climb that mountain and put the flag on the top. What about you?
Oh boy, I don't know that I have one. That's interesting. Not that I'm playing everything I want to. I'm trying to think of something that I know I've just had in the back of my mind for a long time. I guess I have kind of a short list, and I've been slowly learning most of the songs I've wanted to play.
Wow. You've inspired me and other musicians too to get. I want to go back into my music, going back into maybe taking more vocal lessons and just start really learning, digging deep in opera, because I've sung a lot of pop, and other tunes. I guess you call it classically, like put a classical kind of spin on them. Yeah. So I don't want to ask you this, but is there maybe you can tell us that story that you said was for another day about Joshua Missick. Any chance you could share that story?
Oh, sure. Let's see. I'll probably get my years all mixed up, but it had to have been around 2009, 2008. I had somehow gotten in touch with Josh. I think we started emailing, then we had some phone conversations. He was living out in Kansas at the time, and we were living in Aurora, Illinois. And it was before but anyway, we had struck up a good friendship, and then after I won the national championship, he actually helped me. He actually helped me prepare a little bit for the national championship. Just listening to my songs and giving me some feedback. And there was another guy, surprisingly. And I say surprisingly, only it's not that he's not a good hammered dulcimer player. He is. We're just very different in the way that we play the instrument, what we play on the instrument. His name is Rick Thumb. But Rick was actually very helpful to getting me toward the national championship as well. But yeah, Joshua and I have just been friends for a long time. That's kind of really the only story. I just realized it goes back that far. To like 2008, 2009. He actually traveled out here to Indiana, and we did a couple gigs together.
Nice.
Sometime between 2010, 2012. Yeah. So anyway, we've just been friends for a long time. That's all.
Well, this is interesting because that reminds me. I saw this video of all these acoustic guitar players singing the Carl Jenkins Diamond song music all in one room, and I'm thinking, if as you and all these other dulcimer players in one room playing one song, what song would it be? Like Joshua and you are together, and then you have everyone behind you just playing the dulcimer. Like, what song would it be?
It would probably have to be a mountain dulcimer, not a mountain dulcimer. It would probably have to be a mountain song, like Turkey and Straw, St. Anne's Reel, something that a lot of people play, and that happens quite a bit even at dulcimer festivals. They have these big jam sessions. So mostly just it would have to be something like that, because there's so many different skill levels all in one place. So I don't know. I would have to. It would be interesting to maybe make a list of like dulcimer players that like if I was with Dan Landrum, Mark Wade, Stephen Humphries, Joshua Messick, Andy Young, other full-time performers or just performers on the hammer dulcimer, it would be interesting to kind of see what song each of us could land on to play together, because everybody plays very differently in a lot of ways.
That's amazing. That must be very hard to work with. Like, would you have a conductor for this?
Oh gosh,
If you all got...
honestly, I don't know if you'd want to actually be in the room. It would be kind of like a bunch of bagpipers together, or hurdy-gurdy players. I just don't know that it would be real pleasing to the ear.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
It would be a lot of notes, and I just don't know.
Well,
but let's just say I don't think I would ever play in a hammer dulcimer orchestra.
I guess you take solo artists to heart.
Yeah, very seriously. I hope I don't say something on here that'll come back to haunt me. But anyway, I'm trying not to offend. Try not to offend anybody.
Of course not. That's yeah. Diane wants you to play "Africa" by Toto. Sure.
I can't play that one without Sarah. She does all the marimba solo and everything.
Oh wow, I love the marimba. Yes. So what's another thing? Yeah. So before we go to Q&A, Ted, there's I was looking at the hammered dulcimer tunings, and I'm like, what? Have you ever seen a hammered dulcimer tunings? You have the treble and the bass, and the bass, and you have to tune it that way, or do you just tune it by ear?
Oh no, you follow a chart, definitely. As I progressed and play songs in different keys, especially cover songs or something, I detune a few strings on mine to give me more range, because again, without getting too geeky, some keys in the dulcimer have shorter ranges just because of the way it's notated. So and keys like E flat, G sharp, major, different things like that are really almost impossible to play on the hammered dulcimer. So depending on what you're doing, you can detune a few notes to give you some extra depth of range of notes. But for the most part, I follow a distinct pattern, that all hammered dulcimers adhere to.
That's awesome. So before we go to Q&A, I want to ask, where do you find yourself in 5 years?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm so bad at those long range, vision goals kind of thing. I'm
one day at a time.
I'm just such a one foot in front of the other kind of person. I don't live with regrets. I imagine in 5 years, I don't know where I'll be musically, but I know I'll be a grandparent at that point if I'm not dead. We might. Well, yeah, didn't mean to go dark there. I'm just saying.
That's okay.
Share
your heart.
I have children that are getting married, so I'll probably be a grandpa soon.
Congratulations.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what the future will hold. It's really hard to tell. So hopefully I'm still doing music. I would love to be traveling worldwide, taking my wife all around the world, with music and without. Yeah. I don't know how else to answer that question.
That's great. So this is the last, I guess you say in the movie in Carlito's Way, last round of drinks here. Let's come up with some more questions, everyone. We have about a minute before we go to question and answer, which the ones that we have gathered. I'll just wait around, Ted, to see if anybody's going to send any more questions. But in the meantime, we'll just start the Q&A. Diane asked 2 questions, and the first one is, what made you decide to add to your group and become TYB? I don't know what that means.
Ted Yoder Band.
Oh, okay.
What made me decide that? Well, because I'm not really a planner, this stuff just kind of happens. So I had met 2 of my core band members, Doug and Sarah, are obviously, well, to those who know, are obviously married. Doug plays drums and Sarah plays marimba.
Nice.
We had become friends first, of course, and just started hanging out together, and finding out that Doug had just always wanted to do music as a living, as well, and was at the time working in insurance. So I don't know. Doug started. We started doing some shows together. Just percussion and hammer dulcimer, and we did a couple short tours together, and that was the beginning of that. So it all started going slowly. I had we brought Sarah in to play Africa on one of the albums, and we arranged that song, and so we had marimba on that one. And then in the fall of 2019, I had a long tour out east, and so some of the gigs were solo, and Doug couldn't make all of them. So we just had certain ones that he was going to be there with me, and we decided, the only song that Sarah played on was Africa, and their family traveled separate from me, and so I said, well, if you're gonna, travel with Doug, why don't you bring your marimba, and then you can at least play that song in concert with us. And so that was usually the closer. And on that tour in particular, I kind of worked out the stage or the set list so that Doug and I would play music, and then Sarah and Doug would play music together, so there would be more marimba in the concert than just one song at the end. And then I would come back on and play some more stuff with Doug, and then we'd close with Africa. And as the tour went on, Sarah just started learning other parts to some of the songs that she knew that we played, and it just kind of grew from there. So Sarah actually just kind of started wedging her way into the band, if you will. And before you know it, she was on the stage all the time.
Nice.
So that's how it started. Because honestly, other than Africa, I was like, I don't know how marimba and dulcimer are going to fit together. I just didn't have a vision or an ear for it. And so once I started to hear what she could do, I was like, oh, that's really cool.
That is cool.
So it's been, so yeah, that was, I don't know, the genesis of it all.
I love Genesis. Phil Collins. Little joke. Can you tell me what was like when you found out that members of the band Tears for Fears discovered your cover version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World? What was your reaction? And
oh gosh, well, that whole first weekend was just such a roller coaster of emotions, and things were going so crazy. At first, the first person that got in touch with me was the drummer, and his girlfriend actually emailed me and said, "Hey, Jamie's trying to get a hold of you. My boyfriend is Jamie Wollum from Tears for Fears." And I looked at it first, and I was like, "This has got to be spam. There's no way this is true."
Nice.
And so I actually I was like, well, I haven't heard of Jamie, so I don't know who this is. So we actually did some research, and of course went to Wikipedia, and sure enough, there he is, listed as the drummer for Tears for Fears. And I was like, holy crap, and then it was like a day later, or maybe that same day, there were people that were texting me and saying, you need to get on Twitter because Curt Smith is trying to get a hold of you on Twitter. I was like, no freaking way. And he was trying to direct message me, but he couldn't because we weren't friends on Twitter, because I just don't do that. I don't go around friending stars on social media. And so yeah, kind of at the same time, I was getting Curt and Jamie, messaging me in different forms and just saying how much congratulations and how much they loved it, and it's been fun to watch it. And yeah, that was surreal for sure.
Was I know Curt Smith was there, but was Roland Ozbal there too?
No, he was not. At the time, I believe he was having some family crisis stuff
Well,
that was going on. So that was, yeah. So that's why, as far as I know, that's why he wasn't there.
oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I heard the stories about that, and now it's currently at 1.1 million views, and then the one you did by yourself, I think, is at 2.2 currently, I think. Awesome. Wow. Excellent. If you go, I don't know if you heard of Father Ray Kelly, but he was actually, it started where he was doing a mass, and he started singing Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen,
Hmm.
and it now it's over almost 50 million views, and he was on
Oh my
America's Got
gracious.
Talent, and he's got a few albums, all because of that. Like, you ever seen a priest sing a normal tune, especially Leonard Cohen, in front of, and it was during a wedding of this couple. It's on YouTube. It's
Huh.
like 50 million views. It's incredible. Like, I really appreciate your music, and you're wonderful. So let's go with Diane's second question. This is kind of an odd one because I don't notice this on video, because you're being filmed from like the chest up. Something about, I was fortunate enough to see you in concert once and wonder why you were barefoot when you perform.
That kind of goes back to my piano days. I just always played barefoot when I played piano because I wanted to feel the pedals. Um, but but as I grew older, so that's the same reason. I work the damper pedal on the dulcimer the same way. Um, but it's not just when I play the instrument. I go barefoot all the time, just because I love going barefoot. I feel constricted in shoes. um, but as I grew older too, and became such a big fan of Rich Mullins, he would always come out on stage and he played barefoot all the time.
Seriously,
And
wow.
yeah, yeah. And I come to find out there's other people: George Winston, Jimmy Buffett. There's quite a few. I'm sure some of the Grateful Dead probably play barefoot too. You can't be
Wow.
that much of a hippie and not play barefoot. But yeah. So most of it, I don't know. It's just um, it's honestly kind of a lifestyle for me. But when it comes to playing the hammered dulcimer, it's because I want to feel my damper pedal. I've actually played for weddings, and I can't. What was it? Oh, like when I play for a choir or something, and you have to be all dressed up in black and whatnot. And I've played with shoes in those particular situations, and I've actually had to take my right shoe off at least
Oh,
because I started missing the pedal with my shoe because I couldn't feel that I was touching it. Um, and it would make this really big clunking noise, and different things would happen. I was like, man, I can't do this.
that's interesting.
so so most of the time, if you ever think I'm wearing shoes, it's probably just black socks, because I've gotten away with that many times.
You ever heard of those stories, the barefoot detective? You can be the barefoot dulcimer player. Okay, so we have one other question here from Armando. He says, has a dulcimer been used in jazz like the vibraphone has? Just curious.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. In general, I would say no. The closest thing, and Armando, you could probably, I know you can check him out. His name is Andy Young. I know he has videos on YouTube, but he also has music out on streaming platforms. He does gypsy jazz, and he is fantastic.
Wow.
So yes, you could easily do it. It is not. It's amazing to watch him fly around on the instrument, and he plays patterns that hardly any other dulcimer player can or does play, just because of the intricacies of uh, the scales and chords that are involved in that kind of stuff. So it is definitely possible. So that's just not the way I've taken it. So that's why I don't do it.
Yeah, playing with barefoot. I mean, like, when I drive a car, I actually I think I used to drive with bare feet, and it doesn't have this. I guess being on rocks on the beach and having your bare feet on a pedal has a strange feeling. Feet belong in the sand, my friend. That's it. Keep it in the sand. Not on pedals. Well, this is awesome. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to actually ask people if they want to have one last more questions. Anybody out there want to send in some more questions, or we're going to end this stream and give Ted a little bit of a barefoot de-stressing time. Going once, going twice. Okay, sold. Nobody wants to send any questions, but yes, it was a pleasure having you, Ted Yoder, on our show. Really appreciate wonderful information. At this point, I haven't decided to get a dulcimer because I'm more interested in getting my voice back into the groove. So, but when I go,
it will distract you. I wouldn't do it.
No, like
you'll get sucked in.
But I was planning to go up on the stage barefoot, and homage to Ted Yoder. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be singing Nessun Dorma barefoot. I said, why? Because a guy named Ted Yoder, who?
Yes, right.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks, Ted. So
we're
going to end the stream, everyone. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Nope.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay, everyone. And thank you, Audra, for your questions. And thank you, everyone else, for your questions. Let's see. Thank you, Diane, for your questions. Thank you, Audra. I suppose Audra is your wife, I guess?
No.
She's
Just
a
your friend. Yep.
And David Woodman, another shout out to you. Go to David Woodman's music at YouTube, wherever he is. I'll listen to his stuff. Thank you, Andrew Polishak. Okay. So we're going to end this, and we look forward to hearing some more music from Ted Yoder, the barefoot musician. All right.
Thanks everybody.
Ted. So we're going to say goodbye. Now just wait for a bit while we end the stream, and we'll talk for about another minute. Okay, everyone, say goodbye. Bye, Armando. Bye, Diane. Bye, David Woodman Music. Okay, let's go. See you, everyone.